All right, welcome back to another episode of the Extreme Lifestyle Living Podcast. Now, today, what I wanted to talk about is a couple ways to handle being overwhelmed. This is something we all deal with, especially with someone like myself. I deal with a ton of anxiety, social anxiety being particular, and stress can really make us feel overwhelmed. And a lot of my clients that we talk to all the time, the biggest thing is how do I deal with being overwhelmed with so many avenues of our life going on. So I want to talk about a few avenues that I've taken in my own life to actually make sure that I not get overwhelmed at all anymore. Being overwhelmed is literally just an emotion that we feel or a feeling that we feel in the realms of our body's responses telling us something. And 9 times out of 10, the reason why we are overwhelmed or always staying in an overwhelmed state is because we just don't know how to handle it. And then it becomes a conditioned pattern that we just never outgrow. 9 times out of 10, it comes from a childhood conditioned pattern where you're just in an overwhelmed state all the time. And then now as you're an adult, you just don't know how to fucking handle it. Nor does many people. So here's 2 or 3 reasons as to how I take my overwhelm, turn it into understanding what I need to do in my life. And it's really not that hard. The first thing is you just got to embrace it. And that's the hardest thing to do is embrace it. Because when you're overwhelmed, everything feels chaotic. Everything feels like it's all over the place. And this is where you really got to be, again, subjective to your own opinion as to your experiences and how you deal with overwhelm. But embracing it is the very first step that you have to fucking do. Because in order to understand what it is and what type of stimulus you're getting feedback from your life and all these different things and why you're overwhelmed, you got to embrace it. So if you don't embrace your overwhelm and understand what emotions and feelings are coming out of it, you're never going to get to the end of the tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel, and understand what the overwhelm is. Because once you embrace it and figure out why you're being overwhelmed and all these different things and finding out your triggers, that's when you can start to address the different things that are giving you the emotional overwhelm feeling every day. One of the best things that I ever did with this was literally, if you go back on my Instagram, you can see it. I say where it all began, and I mean where it all began from a mental fortitude. All my clients, I talk about building your mental fortitude, building that mental castle in your life of your mind for your life as to where you're at all times. And the biggest thing for me was giving myself that 5 to 10 minute break away from absolutely everything. So where this started was back, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, my corporate job. Every day between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m., I would give myself a 5 to 10 minute break. It was only 3-minute break, to be honest. I would walk around the building. And the reason why this is so important is because what I mean by a break is no electronics, no other stimulant, just you, yourself, by yourself. And if you can get outside and go for a quick little walk, that's even better. But the biggest thing is you got to give yourself time away from everything else in your life to hear and feel the feedback as to why you're feeling overwhelmed. And I can promise you, after day 3, 4, you may not feel anything, but after week 3 or 4, you will be so articulate into your emotions as to what makes you feel overwhelmed. The next problem after that comes with how do you fucking handle that? Because you're going to start to get super disappointed as to how often you let yourself get overwhelmed. You're also going to probably be super discouraged as how many people overwhelm you from their ignorance to their life and their insecurities and their self-doubts. And you're also again disappointed because you're going to find out where you're bleeding that avenue of your own self on other people as well. But the biggest thing with giving yourself 5 to 10 minutes or even just a few moments is embracing it after you've given yourself that time. I can promise you 9 times out of 10, you're going to get feedback and answers as to why you're feeling overwhelmed. Which leads me to my third avenue of what helps me with my overwhelm is then you got to have some type of form of expression with that. You can't just embrace your overwhelm, get super overwhelmed, and then all of a sudden start having conversation with yourself and getting feedback. You gotta know what to do with it because then all that does is create animosity, more anxiety, turns into anger or super deep depression. You just kind of go in your own little physical state and fuck off in the world. But the third thing you gotta do is find some type of way to express it. I call it mind dumping, or me and my best friends call it 2 minutes and go. And what I mean by 2 minutes and go is say, just find a friend that you can confide in, you trust, and talk to them. Bitch and moan for 2 minutes unapologetically. Me and my clients, we talk about it all the time. Send me a voice note. Give me your 2 minutes and go. What are you overwhelmed with? You've been embracing it. Let's talk about it. What's going on? And then just go off about it. Mind dumping or brain dumping is the same thing, but in the form of writing in your journal. Set a timer for 5 minutes and just start fucking writing. Get it all off your fucking head. And the crazy thing about that is then as you reflect on what you've just done, all of the words you said, the emotions you've had, all of everything you articulated in that little span of you having that conversation with yourself, you're gonna start to gain answers. You're gonna start to gain realizations. And then all through those realizations, those are where you find the patterns in your life that you got to change and realign and make sure that they're serving you versus just hindering your life experiences and things like this. And the craziest thing is it's the same as giving yourself that 5 to 10 minute break every day. You're not going to notice changes in the first day, the second day, or the third day of reflecting on what you're actually feeling in your head. It'll take 2 or 3 weeks. It'll take 2 or 3 months. But I can promise you, if you stay committed to this, by the time you're 2-3 months into it, you're going to be so aware as to your daily, your weekly, and your monthly stimulus as to when you get overwhelmed. For me personally, I found out, I get overwhelmed the same day every single week. And then I found out it was stemmed from another day in the week, from an accumulation of a shitty pattern of me not taking care of myself. So then it was just like a shit and kick was the one that kind of like broke that's not a good analogy. The analogy I should have used is, the straw that broke the camel's back. One little thing in your life, that one little straw ends up breaking your entire mind frame because your mentality is so strung up on different things. So if you can commit to this for 4, 6, 7 months, a year, 2 years at that, I can promise you're going to be so agile in your own brain that you're going to literally tell everyone to go fuck themselves, because you're going to be so confident in terms of what aligns with you, what serves you, and you're going to really, 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 really be able to articulate your boundaries, because you're going to be like, I know why I was overwhelmed. I embraced that I was overwhelmed, and then I figured out why I was overwhelmed, and I fucking changed it, and most people in their entire lives, which is why suicide is such a high fucking thing, again, go back to mental clarity, is no one does this stuff. And I think that's just such an important thing for you to understand when it comes to breaking free from your overwhelm and getting control, is embracing it. Is you got to do that. You got to go through the fucking shit of it. The second thing is really, 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 really finding out how you can give yourself a break from everything to really understand what your feedback is giving you. Because all the answers to your life are inside your own brain if you allow yourself to be in a position to take advantage of them. And then the third thing is just figuring out something to express it, whether it's a voice note to a friend for 2 minutes unapologetically, whether it's a mind dump or brain dump in your journal routine, but you got to find something to self-express it. Some people, and again, if you're here for a while, that's why I like going to the gym. A gym is a really good way for you to self-express yourself physically, which gets rid of animosity that you're holding from being overwhelmed. You know what I mean? But to finish up this episode and to give you guys a really good actionable in order to figure out how you can kind of start building momentum and not being overwhelmed as much, is start making literally micro goals. Start making all these little micro goals to start making headway on all these things that I'm talking about. You don't got to like reinvent the wheel, start going for walks, brain dumping, and changing your life today. But you do got to understand it got to start somewhere. So start making micro goals of maybe, a micro goal of going outside in the morning or after work, just for 2 seconds. 3 breaths outside is better than not going outside at all. Maybe you do get overwhelmed and you do get really, really, really just to left field in your brain and kind of numb yourself and avoid life. Maybe a micro goal for you is just holding that space a little bit longer before you numb yourself, or a little bit longer before you start avoiding life. Things like this. I think a big thing as well is when it comes to going outside and embracing everything we're talking about, is just set the smallest fucking goals that can make you start compounding confidence. Literally brushing your teeth, waking up in the morning, going to work, and paying attention to all these little things to understand where you're compounding confidence from. And micro goals is exactly where it's at, because all of us want to change our lives. All of us want to be in the best fucking physical shape of our lives. All of us want to be fucking millionaires. But breaking those bigger goals down into micro goals will help you understand where you're at in time and space, so you're not burdening yourself with the fucking world all the time, feeling over fucking whelmed. But that's it. That's all for this episode. I appreciate you guys all, and just keep doing exactly what you guys do best, which is show the fuck up and set the standard. Let's fucking go.